So in my particular course that I took, which was software engineering at the University of Auckland, I had maybe about 20 courses that were related to software engineering, and about 3 of them were completely useless, and the remaining 17 were really, really, really useful that I use every day in my job. So like off the top of my head, I learned assembly, which is
Pointless.
It was interesting to learn, but I have never used in my job. I also did some AI stuff, but this just my particular job didn't have any artificial intelligence, so I never used it.
Yeah.
But most of all the other stuff, like data structures, algorithms, operating, like OOP, object-oriented programming, all my quality assurance, analyzing code, and operating systems, all of this stuff, you're going to use it every day.
Yeah.
So you do, like at least the data structures and algorithms and object-oriented programming, if you don't already know it like the back of your hand, you will when you actually start working.
So when you said the 3 courses were useless, were they because they were out of date or just irrelevant to your
They were just
career?
irrelevant.
Just irrelevant?
Yeah. So you will probably encounter those courses. You will know what those courses are while you're taking them, most likely. But the good news is, when you actually start working, nobody expects you to know everything. And they're going to expect that you will learn on the job, and that will take about 6 months to a year for you to become net productive.
So they're just not going to like throw you into the deep end and be like, this is what you need to do.
No,
So
that has never. I've worked in 3 different software companies now, and that has never happened to either one of them. So did you have any follow-up, or should we move on to the next one?
Oh yeah, we can move on to the next question.
All right. So next one. Describe your interview process when you apply for the position at Atlassian. So Atlassian advertised this job to me through they had a little stall in my careers fair at the university. And I saw them, they gave me a free t-shirt, which captured my attention. I put in an application, they gave me an online coding test to do, which was like 5 challenges, one harder than the other. And I had to get a certain number of points in that to pass.
Was it a specific language that they were like?
So they gave me the option of 4 languages. I think it was C++, Java, Python, and some other thing. I think it was Ruby, I could be wrong, or JavaScript. So I did mine in Java, and in hindsight I should have done it in Python. It would have saved me a lot of time.
Okay.
There were 5 problems, each worth different points, and each one harder than the other. So you have to try and get at least X number of points. They didn't tell me what the threshold was to get in, but I managed to get in. After that, I had a sort of a character interview, which is they ask you about yourself and why you want to work at Atlassian.
Yep.
So pretty standard interview stuff. After that, I had a technical interview, which was I had to write code, and it was pretty straightforward. They explained the problem to me, and they asked me to just code stuff up.
What was like the specific time frame they gave you to finish that solution?
So there wasn't, at least for me, there wasn't a time limit. I just, oh, you mean time frame as in how long between the interviews?
Oh no, I mean like when they're like, this is the problem, solve it in X amount of minutes.
So the online coding test was timed for 1 hour.
Okay.
But my actual in-person coding test, there was no time limit, but I had to explain what I was doing and why I was doing these things as I was going along. And then about halfway through that interview, when I had my solution ready, so they ran it and they said, okay, this is, your solution runs in X number of seconds. How do you think you can make it faster?
Okay.
And then you normally have to, unless you're good enough to get to the final solution from the start and you hit that time limit, chances are they will ask you to improve on your solution.
So it's kind of like a prototyping approach.
Yeah. So from what I've heard, almost everybody does this, where they come up with the initial solution and then they come up with another one.
Okay.
And then I had a final interview, which was like a technical Q&A. So they'll ask me, what do you think of this language and what do you think of this framework? And I think there were 11 or 10 questions that I was asked to answer. Mostly it was just, what is my knowledge on this and what do you think of this topic? Which I've never been asked in an interview before for my other companies. So it was a
So you
really
think it was good, like a
that
new
was really good.
experience? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're actually asking
The
like your
reason
opinion.
the reason they do that at Atlassian at least is when I joined in my application, I was given a list of these are all the different teams and this is what they do at Atlassian, and I was asked to give 3 preferences. And I think they used my answers to those different questions to try and gauge where I would sit.
Okay, yeah.
It was really interesting.
Yeah, we can move on to the next question.
Yeah. There was, how do you manage your time every day? Do you use any time management software? So, short answer is that I don't manage my time, I manage my tasks instead.
Okay.
So, in terms of time stuff, I usually have things like meetings, or in your case, well, you have assignments, you have deadlines. So that stuff I put in my calendar.
Yep.
And everything else is I have a task-based approach, like I need to get X assignment done and I need to research this topic and
Yep.
write it up or code it up. So like I use software-wise, I use Trello for managing my stuff.
Okay.
In terms of what I would say is it's a good idea to prioritize your work. Like the whole point of doing the task-based thing is to ensure you're always doing the most optimal thing for now. And while you're students, the easiest thing is whatever has the closest deadline. That's the
Yeah,
thing you need
just-
to, or whatever's worth the most marks, that's the one you want to do first. It kind of gets a bit more hazy when you get into working life.
Is that because you're working with a team and not by yourself, or?
You're usually working on more than one thing at a time, or you have
Okay.
more than one thing to worry about at a time. Most of the time, your team lead will tell you what's the most priority thing you need to work on, and you just work on that till it's done. In terms of going back to student life and helping you get to where you want to get, I would highly recommend that you schedule in time for fun.
Okay.
So I don't know about you, but when I was in uni, my primary source of fun was playing video games.
Yeah, same here.
Same here. So my attitude was usually like when the clock hits 10 o'clock, when it's 10 p.m. at night, I can game.
Okay.
And everything before that has to be work. And like having that little line in my mind saying, you know, this is where I work and this is when I play, that really helped me to not procrastinate.
Okay. Because it's kind of like you're working towards your reward.
Yeah. So it was, at least for me, I got a lot of stuff done. Like I studied 2 degrees at the same time, and I managed to get pretty good grades with the minimal amount of work. And I played video games basically every day, like even on days when I had the exam the next morning, like I still had time to game.
Would you just say that's just how you unwind it, so it's just good for you to relax every now and then?
It is A, good for you to relax, and B, because I had the task-based approach rather than the time-based approach, I just drew a line in the sand and said, I'm just going to do as many things as I can get done. And anything that I couldn't get done by then is done the next day.
Okay.
Of course, when you had exams, you do need to be more time conscious, but most of the time, assuming you're not procrastinating, you will get your assignments done if you work on them. So that's what I would recommend. There's a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen, which I would recommend reading if you're particularly bad at getting things done. Yeah, I would just say, if you're not procrastinating, you have plenty of time to do everything you want to do. Right. Were there any follow-up questions about that?
No, I think you covered everything well.
Okay, okie dokie. Could you describe the technology or software you use in your daily work? So I use OS 10 primarily because that's the laptop I was given for work. So I never used a Mac before this. I code mostly in Java, and I use IntelliJ. And I work on a lot of Java-related stuff like Spring and Maven, which you may or may not have come across yet. I use Git for managing the code. The particular thing I'm working on is called Elasticsearch, which is a search engine, and I'm working on implementing that in our products. If I need to do any scripting work every here and there, I use mostly Python. In terms of everything else, I use the Google Suite a lot. So my emails is all Gmail. I use Google Drive for my docs, for my backups. I use Google Photos in my personal life for my photos. pretty much anything that I can put, if I can give my personal data to Google for them to use, I just do it. I don't bother too much. I use Google Calendar because that's what we use at Atlassian as well. I just found it's really beneficial to put all of your eggs, or put all of your data with the same provider, because then they give you additional features the more you have in one place. I would just say use your software or your technology to your advantage and shop around. Back in university, I was very much in the Microsoft game and putting everything in OneDrive and using Microsoft Office. And once I left uni, my requirements changed and the way I used it changed.
How hard was the transition to, say, Microsoft, like Windows to Mac?
Luckily, I was surrounded with people who were good with maths, and I would just go on to HipChat, which is our company chatting software,
Yep.
and I would just say, how do I do X, Y, Z in OS X? And then they'll be like, okay, yeah, this is how we do it. Or even just go up and complain about how Windows has a feature and OS 10 doesn't. I think I adapted within a few weeks.
Yep.
It was feeling natural again.
Yeah, I think you covered everything in that question.
All right. How do you learn things in order to succeed in your work? So this is a tricky question. It all depends on what you mean success to be. It could mean good enough to get the job done or mastering the skill. So what I found works for me is I don't try to master more than one thing at a time. Right now I'm really focused on Java and getting Java down as much as possible. I don't think anyone can ever say they've truly mastered Java. It's a pretty broad topic. In terms of actual learning, it pretty much comes down to the attitude you bring to it.
Okay.
You will get enough slack from your team and your workplace to learn everything you need to learn in the time that you're going to learn it.
So you say it's good to be an open-minded person, willing to try new things?
Yeah. Yeah, if you're willing, depends on the company. Some companies will not ask you to do much. Like they'll give you these 5 things you need to know, and then they'll never ask you to learn anything else.
Okay.
And you generally speaking want to avoid those jobs as much as possible, or at least not stay in them for too long. Luckily at Atlassian, there's always something new coming up. There's always something exciting to work on. So it's not an issue. Everyone gives you enough slack for you to get up to speed with stuff.
Yep.
If you're a slow learner, you will get enough leeway to learn.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Covered everything.
I would also want to add that at Atlassian we do get a $3,000 a year conference budget for us to go out to different workshops and conferences to learn stuff, and I do make use of that. I would recommend everyone.
What kind of conferences have you been to with that money?
So I've been to, because I work in Elasticsearch, I've been to 2 Elasticsearch conferences for learning various things. Yeah. And I probably will want to try some JavaScript or Kotlin workshops going forward. So
Are those conferences based just in Australia, or can you go, say, like America or something?
So, from what I understand, if they are overseas, you need to pay for your own travel.
But they'll pay for the
But they'll pay for the
Okay.
conference. All right. Next one. Is the job market competitive, and is it hard for an international student to get a job in this field? So the job market is competitive, but not for you. It's competitive for the people employing. There are way more jobs than there are people in this industry. So obviously the popular jobs like Google, Microsoft, all of the big companies that you can think of, they will get a lot of applicants, and that will be competitive. But as a software, like if you have a computer science degree or some sort of IT degree from an Australian university, you should have no trouble finding a job in Australia.
What about, say, internationally?
If you have a degree from overseas, things get more complicated, mainly to do with visas. It's not that these companies don't want to hire you. It's just that it's a bit of a hassle to hire someone from overseas. But given that the 3 of you are already here, it'll be a lot easier.
Yep.
And I'm thinking back to my my university and my batch of about 50 students who went through the program, I think 100% of them got jobs before they graduated. So, I mean, you should start at, are you in your second year?
First year.
You're in your first year. So, how long is your course?
4 years.
4 years. Right, so this coming summer, when you have your first break, you should start looking for a job. So, my first summer, I actually took time off and just relaxed.
Okay.
But after that, I've never had a summer break. I've always had a job, and chances are you'll always have at least a few job offers.
And how would you go about like searching for these jobs?
The easiest way to find them, at least for graduate positions, is going to be just your university careers fair.
Yep.
Like you'll find at least 5 or 6 different software companies come there. Otherwise, try a student job search website.
Okay.
Or if you know a company, just go to their website and look and see if they have a graduate or an internship program.
Yep.
Also look for non-software companies that also hire IT professionals. Pretty much every company needs to hire an IT professional. Just look for ones that do internships.
Okay.
Yeah, I imagine none of you should have any trouble finding a job in this field. Yeah, last thing to mention is if you don't get what you want at first, just take the best you can, and then maybe 3 years or 4 years later, apply again when you have that work experience on your CV. Is there any other follow-up questions? Types of companies might employ Google then, although you might be thinking more computer sciencey for those kind of companies. In terms of IT, I can honestly, like everybody, every company needs an IT professional, like a law firm, an accounting firm, every kind of business these days requires a professional. Just go for a big one, and chances are they're taking interns.
Yep.
This is the most tricky question you guys put on this list. What type of ethical issues would be encountered by IT professionals? So, very interesting question. Straight off the bat is customer information is something you'll be dealing with. So at least for Atlassian, we actually have external customers. We work with people outside of the company, and we have to be very careful with their personal information. So, like not leaking it by accident, not putting it in your logs, not even looking at it. So there's never any reason you need to look at customer information. And usually, like if there's a bug on their side, it's the support team that needs to first ask permission to look at it.
Okay.
And stuff like that. What else? So at Atlassian, we have this, one of our unspoken company values is called seek first to understand. And that means when you see a problem that is a result of a poor decision made somewhere along the line, your first reaction has to be to understand it rather than to criticize it. Like understand what were the constraints when that decision was made. And you will see a lot of terrible decisions being made in your career as an IT professional. And you have to not play the blame game in your field, or you will annoy a lot of people and destroy a lot of good relationships.
Yep.
There was a previous job I worked at, which was Fisher & Paykel Healthcare. I was working on the little breathing devices used by people with sleep apnea. And one of the things that this device did was it would humidify the air before sending it down to the patient's lungs. And if it is possible that if something went wrong and you made that air too humid, then it would be really uncomfortable for the customer. And in worst case scenario, you would drown the patient by them breathing into too humid air. So in that sense, a lot of it is you cannot cut corners. Like when in assignments, you would go, a B plus, or a D plus is a passing grade. But in real life, it's pretty much, an A plus is the only grade. Everything else is a fail. So most of the time, someone will tell you Because this is the minimum that is expected from you, and everything below that is a fail. There's no grading system. It's
So
all
either
passing.
meet the client's expectations or exceed them, basically.
Yeah, there's no falling short.
Yep.
It depends on your industry. Chances, like if you're working, say, in a law firm, then yeah, you do need to meet your client's expectations. If you're working in the medical field, exceeding them is recommended. All comes down to your industry and how crucial your work is and who can get hurt. Like whether it's a loss of finances or like actual physical harm to people.
Yep.
Were there any follow-up questions?
No, you covered everything.
Well, that's everything I had on your list. Was there anything else you wanted to ask?
There's a few other questions. Wait, how much footage do we have left anyway?
We recorded like 49 minutes.
Yeah, that will be had. We should start with some basic ones. Can you introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name's Mikhail and I'm from New Zealand, working at Atlassian on the Confluence team. So my background is in software engineering, which I did at the University of Auckland. And I started working here a year and a half ago.
What are the requirements and qualifications you need to get a job as a software engineer?
So a lot of big companies will require you at least have a degree in either computer science or software engineering or something similar. Although if you do have work experience in the field, chances are no one's going to care whether or not you have a degree.
Yep.
Most interview processes will confirm whether you know how to code or not.
So you'd say it's less about the qualification and more skill-based?
Yes, so if you don't have work experience, that's when your qualifications matter. And pretty much after your first job, no one's going to look at your education.
Yeah, between university knowledge and work, how big is the gap?
No, I've already answered that.
You already answered it? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you describe the interview process? He's already
He
answered that
just
too.
did. Did you ask about the trend of it? Like the trend of your
impact
current
technology.
position?
Oh yeah. Over the span of your time working here, has the advancements of technology impacted you, and if so, how?
All right. For those who are in the industry, when I say this one word, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And that one word is JavaScript. So JavaScript completely changes about every 6 months. So when I joined, I learned a particular framework. We don't want to name it, but it's already obsolete now. And I only learned this maybe about a year ago, and no one uses it anymore.
So you just constantly have to learn new things.
So yeah, in this is a field of learning, and this is a field where graduates have a huge advantage because they come out of university having the latest knowledge, which is what makes graduates a very, very useful resource in our field.
Is it possible for your job role to be automated, and if so, how?
So I would highly, highly recommend you watch the video Humans Need Not Apply on YouTube by CGP Grey. And he will pretty much explain exactly what I'm about to say, but the answer is yes. The answer is every job out there that exists can be automated. It's just a matter of some are more automatable than others. But yeah, software, we've been trying since the 1900s to try and automate the job of software developers. And it's only a matter of time before it happens.
Did you add about the biggest issue or something?
Oh yeah. What is the biggest issue you faced, and how have you overcome it?
Sounds like an interview question. Okay, biggest issue I faced, and how did I overcome it? To be fair, I can't think of big issues. I can just remember this one time. I mean, it's very unlikely to actually happen in real life, but it did happen to me. I think it was around 9, maybe around, actually more like 11 p.m. on a Friday night, and I was nicely drunk from a party when I get a little message saying, hey, these customers, they can't access their data anymore. We need to fix this right now. I wasn't on call. I could have chosen to ignore that message with no impact to me. But I had a little bit of consciousness still left to help them diagnose the problem. And it did get fixed in a timely manner, which is a good thing. But yeah, that's pretty much the issues that come up are usually when stuff goes wrong and I'm not at work.
Would you say your job is always on call, or?
No, my job is never on call. And I'm never required to be on call. And if stuff comes in, I'm allowed to say, sorry, I'm not working right now.
So it's more of an ethical kind of thing, whether you take
I have
the
said
job
in
or
the
not.
past, I've said in the past, like, hey, I'm not working right now, but usually if I can help, I will help.
Yep. Any other questions you guys want to ask him?
Sao nhìn đây? Nhủ tụi bay muốn nói ở đi. Mày hiểu đi.
Well, I guess, what kind of development approach do you take?
As in a software development?
Yeah,
or personal?
software development.
Okay, software development approach. So we use, almost all of the industry uses Agile, and every company uses this. You must have heard of Scrum at some point, or you will hear of Scrum at some point in your degree. And every company that is out here uses this this method called Scrum, which is we use Scrum, but we don't do this XYZ thing that Scrum does because we think it's a waste of time. So yeah, our methodology, like our process is pretty much Scrum, but we throw out a lot of the bits that we don't feel like doing.
Yep.
So usually it is, we work in sprints, which is like a span of time where you get allocated some work and you try and get that much done. And the point of a sprint is how much your team, or after a while of working with your team, how much your team can deliver per week. And you at the start of the week, you look at all of the work that is in your backlog and you decide how much effort is it on each one of these and how much you can take on for the next 2 weeks. And you only commit to doing those tasks. So once again, like coming back to the other question you asked me in terms of time-based approach versus task management. So software is very much, you'll be developing software very much in a task management place. We give all our estimates in how much work we think something will be as compared to how much time something will take.
Yep.
It's like subtly different, but it's different.
Any other questions?
So is it easy to switch to different IT path? Like you are like a back-end developer and then you want to switch to another role, to another field. Is it easy to switch between?
So yeah, like you said, I'm currently on the back end, and if I wanted to say switch to the front end and do UI stuff, I would have to do a decent amount of learning, maybe a month or two of on the job learning to get up to speed with the other front end devs. But then there's other different kinds of roles. So I can move into a DevOps role, a developer operations role, which is more support work and more running things in production. Or I can go for SRE, which is site reliability engineering, which is all about what is going on in production and how a customer is impacted by things that go wrong and fixing them. So there's very different kinds of roles in the IT world.
When you said it would take you 2 months to catch up to, say, someone that's already been in the industry, are a lot of employers willing to take that risk?
So I can't speak for every employer, but in general, yes. And like at Atlassian, I was hired with the expectation that in the first year, I will not be net productive. So I will require more time from other people to train me than I will actually deliver.
Yep.
If I wasn't at the company. almost every company that hires you has the expectation that you will take a few months to get up to speed with everybody else.
Yeah. So it's kind of just like adjusting to say theory side where you just sit there and you learn it in university to getting your hands on, which is completely different.
Yeah. So like there's about 1 million different technologies out there, and university will teach you maybe 2 or 3 of those. And chances are, even if you won the lottery and the company that hired you is using the exact technology you learned, you would not have learned it in nearly enough depth to actually write enterprise code with it, in like production level stuff. So everyone will expect you to learn, and everyone will give you slack for you to learn.
Any other questions?
I think we're running out of questions.
You want to just read out the ones I've already answered?
Yeah.
Any casual question, guys? Guys?
Oh yeah, what are your working hours?
What are my working hours? So usually it's the standard 37.5 hours a week, or whatever 7.5 hours a day times 5 adds up to.
Yeah.
I try not. One of our company values is build with heart and balance, which means not exceeding, not doing more, like not working harder than you can. Like you need to go home and you need to go to your family and you need to go and rest and you need to go relax.
Yep. So do they give you a lot of time to do that?
So if you walked around Atlassian, you'll see we have a nice cafeteria, a ping pong table, a pool table, a lot of board games. So the idea is to mix work and play so you never feel like you're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I can count on one hand the number of weeks where I've worked more than 40 hours a week. Like it's pretty rare that would ever happen. Like if I worked more than 8 hours on one particular day, I'll go home early the next day.
Does Atlassian take a lot of internships?
Yes, a lot.
How many would you say per year?
I think the year I joined, there were maybe about 10 interns, which is a lot of interns to hire. Like most companies will not hire more than 1 or 2.
Yeah. Should we just smooth out the rest of it and then call it a night?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
What were the questions we answered then? Oh yeah, what kind of games do you play? Completely off topic, but what kind of games do you play?
So I have a big ass Trello board with all of the games that I've bought over.
Can you describe the interview process for Atlassian?
All right, cool. Then the next one is, how do you manage your time every day? What software do you use?
Okay. How do you manage your time every day, and what kind of software do you use to manage it?
Could you describe the technology or software you are using in your daily work?
Yeah. Can you describe the technology and software you use in your everyday life?
Hey Patrick,
Yeah.
there's some problem.